Last video, I mentioned that Pokemon can only remember 4 moves at a time. However, what exactly are moves? Moves have a variety of effects. First of all, they can affect either both opponents, one opponent, all other Pokemon, or even your partner. Next, they can be used a limited number of times. That stat is called power points, or PP, and is a set number for each move. Broadly, moves can be divided into 2 groups depending on function: damaging moves and status moves. Damaging moves have one other stat from PP called power. This is generally how powerful the move is. Other than that, the damage dealt is based on type effectiveness and the applicable attack stat. Like I mentioned in the last video, damaging moves can either be physical or special. Physical attacks scale off of a Pokemon's attack stat, while special attacks use the special attack stat. Usually, the competitive damaging moves have some kind of secondary effect, like a chance to inflict status, like Flare Blitz here has a 10% chance to burn, or lowering the target's stats. Or, in the case of Fake Out, when it hits, it makes the opponent flinch, meaning they can't move for that turn. However, some attacks are just good because they do a lot of damage. Every move that isn't a damaging move is a status move. These moves do a ton of things, but generally they either inflict some sort of status effect like burn or paralysis, change the environment through weather or terrain, or increase or decrease stats. But there are a ton of unique effects. Let's look at a few of the competitive ones. First, Taunt. The target of Taunt can't use status moves for 3 turns. In other words, they're stuck using only damaging moves. That's pretty useful if your opponent has an annoying Pokemon that's looking to AL your team. Next up is Trick Room. This one is kind of an environment type, but Trick Room itself isn't like weather or terrain in the official sense. When you use Trick Room, for the next 5 turns, the normal move order is switched. In simpler terms, that means that the slowest Pokemon gets to move first. Slow Pokemon are normally built to deal and take a bunch of damage, with the only real weakness being their speed. Trick Room is super useful to patch that kind of thing up. Finally, I'd like to talk about Trick and Switcheroo. These moves are functionally the same, so don't get confused. The target and the user of Trick or Switcheroo swap their items, and that's it. It might seem simple, but this exemplifies how a simple move can have many interactions. For example, there's an item called Eject Button. When the holder gets hit, you're forced to switch out. If you use Trick or Switcheroo to give this to an opponent, you can force them into a bad position. On the other hand, there's the item Lagging Tail. The Pokemon that holds it generally moves last. It sounds really bad when you say it like that, right? But if you give it to the opponent, it becomes a burden to their Pokemon instead. Moves are the most versatile aspect of Pokemon. You'll most likely never know every single possibility that an opponent has. But as you grow as a player, you'll be able to recognize the role of a Pokemon and what moves a Pokemon will have in general.